Ta-da! And welcome to Josef's Model Railway and Toy Room. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You don't need to like, follow, or subscribe. I just put the videos out there where I can and have a holly jolly great time doing so. And it's a little bit of an ambivalent type of atmosphere that I'm bringing to this video. One, I am so excited to share with you Knoodle Knocker Junction is for the most part complete. Yes, I'm aware we're still working on a backdrop and there are a couple more signals that will be going in after I've shot this piece of the video. So in the final footage, you'll see some signals. However, we need to start with some rather sad news. And that is, I really went above and beyond shooting footage for this particular video with the build process. I had more than 100 gigabytes of quality 4K video, and that was more than 30 hours I had captured both time-lapse and real life during the construction. However, all that footage is gone. It was good footage because I started in a position where I set a follow spot light here where it looked like it was daybreak, and I kept tracking the camera and the lighting accordingly, that as we started finishing it and we started getting some lights being switched on around the railway junction, it started to denote the sort of sunset and transition as we finished. It's all gone. Look, I don't want to talk about it. What's done is done. We can't go in the past. We're not going to try and recover it. We'll just carry on. So you're going to get a super quick video of basically me, a quick little chat about how I came up with the concept and the finished product. It is a shame. We did cover a lot, but nothing we haven't already discussed in previous videos. As always, the simple fact was it was constructed using our foam board and just building up layers. Then I take a hot wire cutter, run it through to create a bit of a smoothed edge to give me the spectator's mound, so to speak. And again, just taking this little linking piece we're going to use to link the two modules together. You can see once we've cut it, I just applied some basic brown paint. In my case, I use a swampland green. Then I just dust a little bit of flocking over it, a little bit of static grass, and that's pretty much the build process. The only thing that is a little bit different about how we did this, and I did go into some explicit detail regarding the build process, was when it came to using this product from AK. Now this is AK Terrain's Dark Earth, an acrylic, and it basically goes on like a mud. If we open it up, and hopefully the camera will allow you to see, the product basically comes out like a wet mud and can be brushed over. So really, if you took some brown paint and added some dirt, you're pretty much on the right path. But it did allow us to get a little further texture going on to the scene itself. I did manage to recover a few little sections about how I ended up building the spectator's shelter. And of course, when it came to building the actual platform for where our racers will stand with their radio controlled transmitters, of course, that was just a NOCH laser cut mini, which was actually a playground that I snipped and remodified to design what I needed. The same with the grandstand, a little bit of some gentle modification, but that's all we really needed, and it really yielded some great results by the time we added a touch of personalization.
As always, the inspiration has been taken from an 80s TV show called Punky Brewster, and in which case she accidentally received a gift which was a radio control car, but not to be told she's a girl, she decides to build it, customize it, and is then told she can't race it. So she dresses up as a boy, and there's this tremendous track which was indeed sponsored by Tamiya in the episode. They put this tremendous track together, and it's basically what I'm going to try and replicate where possible. So of course you'll notice the tires in the background, a bit of bunting with the flags across the controlling. The Tamiya branding is quite definitive across this bit of sponsorship in the TV show. A nice simple track, and obviously what is almost like a little water crossing here, but just basically a dried up series of pebbles, and I thought we need to add a bit of a feature like that. Of course, in the episode, Punky does indeed win the race, as you would expect, and we have a tremendous bit of inspiration, and great reference points. So here's the space we have. You'll recall in a previous video, we obviously do have our backhoe that is also going to be finding its permanent home amongst this. I also took a moment to just research a few radio control tracks that I'm aware of, and just a quick satellite view, you can certainly see the general format and what you can expect. Also like to pay a big shout out to the radio control track that used to be located behind the Westies Sports Club on Playford Avenue in Wales, South Australia. They've obviously since moved their location out to the Craft Village toward the steelworks. A lot of the circuits will usually feature a type of typical white and or yellow type of PVC pipe that they use as the edging, and occasionally you'll still see a little bit of the red and white ripple strip type of scenario you would see in actual Formula One racing. So just taking a little bit of both concepts and throwing them in the pot. You will also notice here we also have a chap who decided to illuminate his backyard radio control circuit, and also there's a few pictures here of some of the controller stands that are there. Now when it comes to the vehicles, we're going to have to dig deep here, and in which case we're going to go small, very small, T-scale in fact. That's a scale of 1 to 450, and if these images are anything to go by and you think it's tricky to paint, well, you better believe it. I did my best just to give a rough appearance of what could be a car, although I will give special note to this particular, the Tamiya yellow van, the lunchbox, and did my best to try and recreate that in a little bit of a way possible, albeit my shaky hand, even with a fine tip brush, could not yield an orange and red lightning bolt. I just had to do my best with a bit of a squiggle. But I think to anyone looking at the two, you'll see what I was trying to do. And for anyone that's tried to paint anything on a scale that is 1 to 76 or HO 1 to 87, now try and do this on a scale of 1 to 450, and I think I really didn't do all that bad. Here we are, and this is what we've got to work with at the moment. I have just dropped in these yard lights at the moment, which I think are going to look fantastic. So they've been dropped in. We'll clean them up, wire them up later. I don't know if you can see, but there's a marker that I've run across here. Basically gives us enough to landscape where we're going to have vehicular access for maintaining the line as necessary. We'll also open it up and change the ground cover here, because I did want to take some spare track, cut up the track and then stack sleepers so it looks like they've just left some residual track in this junction for further maintenance down the line where necessary. So that still leaves us basically this little patch here to create what we needed to do. Now it's very tempting to just come along and make a bit of a track and plop it down, but of course I still think we've got a lot to be gained from cutting up, as we've done before, our XPS foam board. And in which case, I've just taken a couple of modules. I've thinned them down, of course, because they're usually the 1/4 inch stuff we've been using. And the theory is now we've got something to start working on here. Give or take, I'm going to fill in gaps as needed. But basically, I thought we might start and at least have the base system at this level. We'll probably bring it up a little bit of texture, extra mountain to jump and whatever else, but it's not about the removing the scene from here for further maintenance down the track. It just seems that it's nice to give a little bit of a profile and a little bit of an edge to bring it up separate from the railway line. But before we can design what exactly is going to be sitting here in its exact dimensions, now we enter in these two particular kits. And now it's over to Joseph for a quick explanation on what he has done differently to these kits and what we are up to. Thanks for that, Joseph, and I'm sorry we've lost some of that quality footage, but we'll get there, don't worry. Okay, so we've taken a couple of NOCH kits. The first was a playground that we snapped up the two towers and then just sort of glued the key pieces together to create a stand for our operators to control their radio control cars. The second part, of course, once again, from NOCH, we have one of these one of these laser printed grandstands, which again is a little bit too big for what I need. So I just build it to the size required and trim it back as necessary, adding a few drops of paint and weathering powder as we carried on. Very straightforward builds, and really only takes probably less than half an hour to put these together. Plenty of leftover bits and pieces we can use in other projects, and as you can see, it's a bit of a hodgepodge modification to what the original thing was. Once again, NOCH saved the day again with a radio controlled series of figures that we can modify and use as required. Even if we just have a couple of people with the transmitters in their hand, I think it gives a wonderful bit of detail. It's back to you now, Joseph, at Knoodle Knocker Junction.
Thanks for that, Joseph. Well, let us return now with our semi-completed projects. The grandstand, which we still need to trim back to size, and where our operators will control it from. We will follow our original plan and have that mounted somewhere in this location, and preferably a grandstand heading off into the distance over here, albeit maybe even over here. I'm not quite sure just yet. But I have another surprise for this grandstand, which is why I do want it in a semi-particular type of location. Of course, we had to build these first, so I knew what then I had room left with. We're not going to necessarily make the entire radio control car track. I really just want to focus on the traditional type of configuration as seen on that clip. Of course, we can exaggerate things and make it look like it's going deeper and returning, because we don't have a lot of room, but I still think we have enough to create a bit of texture and interest in the scene. So let us carry on. So again, I'm sorry that we've lost that footage. Lesson learnt, and here we are. The great news is, though, I'd now like to present to you where we already put a model railway club inside the signal box here at Knoodle Knocker Junction. We have now got the radio control club here as well, which I think really brings the scene out perfectly, and we finally have some illumination finished on Knoodle Knocker Junction. Apart from some minute additional detailing that we'll do in time, I'm very happy now. So ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the Knoodle Knocker Junction Radio Control Club. And a big thanks to an indie band from Baton Rouge in the United States called Riarossa for this particular track that I'll share with you in the video, called Better Than Nothing, which is just exactly how I feel getting us to this point with the video.
you're feeling. What you have should always be. Wait for the day that we will become. Until the time we'll chase the sun. Let me know when we will get there. My heart might tear apart. Feel so lucky when I'm with you. I felt it from the start. Let me know when we will get there. My heart might tear apart.
Yes, the signals were wired up and located. Girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Yes, we still need to sort a backdrop out, and there's this back corner here, although the not very interesting scene that I have planned for that has to do with the linking of the fiddle yard coming up. That's why, for those of you with a keen eye, you will notice underneath where the board is, you'll notice some wires just dropping down. It's not being untidy, it's because that's for a feed that will be coming around here to do something with the signaling, but we're not quite up to that process just yet.
I've already edited the video and put it up, and then realized I forgot some things, part of the process of what we lost. I suppose the first thing I just wanted to bring you in on the finished product and just really quickly point out a few things you may have missed. The first one was the radio control operator inside actually had this plane in his hand. I thought it looked fitting that it sort of lost control and landed there, and he can keep his controller and he's operating. Although he seems to have his hand in the air, and while there's not a plane there, maybe it's because a seagull just stole his batteries or his lunch. Of course, something else, the father and the son, very nice there. The signs were all handmade, just printed out on card. The backs were painted with actually the Tamiya grey spray paint. I didn't use them on the start finish post. That is just some of the standard styrene I-beams I've used for that, and just put a couple of stretches of card on that. Knoodle Knocker Junction seemed like a nice appropriate logo, and of course I replicated that here on the back of the shed. This was a last minute addition, which was just creating a little footbridge. NOCH actually make a footbridge, but I couldn't get one, so I had some leftover scale model scenery from the canal, and I cut it up, put some paint on, and I think that little footbridge isn't all that bad. All of the LED floodlights are actually N-scale lights that we've used, but same manufacturer and the same build that we could go and see on the floodlights on the cricket ground. Of course, as always, once they've been put in, you will notice that I always dust a little bit of grey weathering powder so it looks like the concrete of where they were, where their footing was. To create the edging in the yellow, that is of course just a piece of the general type of string that you would have in your craft drawer, which is what we had, and I just took some Tamiya spray paint and applied some licks of paint, which actually gave it a bit of a stiffness, which made it easier to sculpt into shape. The base for the actual racetrack itself on the foam board was 2 layers of cork. The same cork we've used as the underlay for the track bed is what we did here, and of course I cut it so that we could create a little bit of a feature section here. And of course there's a little rundown here of where some storm water could be collecting, and of course it would further run off as necessary. There's also a drain pit located next to where our backhoe is. The same material we used for making the footbridge was just the offcuts of bits of timber, and we used that to create the stand to hold up what is just the card for what we have done to create the edging. I'm not really happy with the bunting that was from scale model scenery. I should have trimmed that white back a little more, maybe even dangled it down the front. But of course, you'll see that I did keep some of the leftover yellow ends, which they'd have if they're going to re-alter the course or do something differently, which is why I sort of left this bit in a way that looks like it's not finished, where someone else might say, oh, we're taking it out and we're going to do a full oval or something like that. Once the cork had been laid down, as we always do, give it a lick of brown paint. As mentioned before, AK make a dark earth that we basically brush on. Once it was brushed on, it's got a nice finish, and you can see where I draped the brush around to give it almost like the tire marks that you'd expect to see in key areas. I still came back with weathering powder and made the necessary adjustments. These key banked curves here and particularly here and here were done with the Woodland Scenics Smooth It compound, which is what we did our roads with. I think that worked out quite well. Regarding the design of the track, for those of you with a keen eye, you may have figured out if you wanted to race on it, and there's two distinct ways to race on it. One, you swing around the corner, get some speed, time the jumps, come across, and you will notice there's a slipway here. You could take this if you didn't want to do the jump. You can race through at top speed and then jump, although if you come too fast, you'd crash out, so you'd need to slow down and take the jump at the right speed. Or if you're a very savvy driver, you'll be fast enough to take the low route, cut straight across, and you'll notice there's a little open passage here that you could make the perfect entrance into the next turn. Of course, we snake our way through. Again, as we come out, you're forced to take it. You could either come in tight and try and create a line that runs like this, or you might swing off wide trying to capitalize, because there's a skewed type of jump here. So you could try and diminish your speed, take this and run it around, go wide off of here and then strike back. So the whole idea is I actually had planned this as if I was actually racing the car myself to try and put it into a logical scene. These are some new bushes that I've picked up that I'm really happy with. It's that nice balance between having some lichen that we try and create, which sometimes isn't quite working, and a tree which can be too big. I really quite like these bushes, expect to see more. Your operators joining you down on the course to help the cars that crash or roll over, of course, were the leftover people from our fishing trawler build. And I would love to have some more spectators, but I haven't quite found the amount of people in the right poses I want, so we'll leave that. But this grandstand definitely could do with a few extra people. I'll just reposition our lunchbox van here, and you can see that is still quite a defined section I did make there. It's hard to get some of these angles looking right. And of course I did leave a bit of an opening just under here. Obviously we've got the jump that comes up, so it's not like anything's going to go over here, but it's a great opening for them to come down and load up cars or turn it into a bit of a pit area or something like that. Again, I'd love to squeeze more detail in, but we've got to make use of the space that is available. Here's Lunchbox on the tip of my finger, which really gives you a great idea of the size. And if I come in with the tip of my paintbrush as a pointer, you're really starting to see, you can clearly see the lines on my fingers and how small this is. If you're wondering what the wheels are, and I cut them a bit fatter to give it that sort of buggy type of look, the wheels are of course just pieces of copper cable, what you'd be using for your hookup wire or something like that. It's just cut and then glued accordingly. And you can see what I've done. I'm sorry I've ruined the magical for you there. Anyway, I really do like this particular one out of all of them, and I think it really does fit the scene. So we'll put him back in a prominent position there. Let's just turn off those overhead lights. As you can see, these red and green lights here, we actually have 1, 2, 3, you can see the reflection on that, and 4. The design is they're actually facing our operators, apart from this one here, which gives good reference also to the operators, but also to the crowd so they can see when the flag is being dropped. Of course, we do have someone here with our checkered flag, and I have dimmed these lights to what I think is a reasonable type of level without distorting too much behind it from our wonderful yard lights, giving that almost sodium vapor glow of yellow to them. Again, in the background, you'll recall we have a model railway down in Knoodle Knocker Junction, and we did do the interior inside of the X signal box. Of course, for the keen eyes, you'll notice that we did put a series of power lines running across the top nut that we'll see in this picture. Get this wonderful appearance across the track without denoting anything away from the other scenes. The water, of course, was just the Woodland Scenics realistic water, just dabbed over with a bit of a brush. And that's pretty much the format in which we finished with.
Of course, we've got just the natural lights turned on at the moment for shooting the rest of the video, but I did take a bit of time and some extra expense in making sure that all of those yard lights and indeed the floodlights on the radio controlled circuit were actually independently wired to the Woodland Scenics Just Plug lighting system using their lighting dimmers, because I really did want to just make sure I had just the right amount of light output for each light. Obviously, when you do plug a few LEDs in, it can become quite bright. In this situation here, these also are on independent dimmers as well and do go much brighter, but too much brightness can't be a good thing for the LED itself, and or you can get a lot of light bleed coming from the back, as we discussed in the Woodland Scenics Just Plug Lighting video, and here is a link for it right here. There is so much customization and simplicity that can be used with it. Now, just to address a comment that was mentioned in an earlier video, how many things can I be adding lighting wise to a layout using the Woodland Scenic system? Well, if we just go back to this picture, which gives a really nice backdrop picture of the other side of the layout and all of those lights running, we're still just running on the same power pack. I am probably not even going to scratch possibly 5% of the total usage I can get from that transformer. So when people are worried about how much power will I need to power all of this, not much. Remember, the model airport, the LEDs on that, running from just standard batteries. We could be doing exactly the same here today. Of course, I'm devastated to have lost all that footage. The build process really was something special, what I got up to. And of course, I think you can see the final product is spectacular. Regarding a series of lights, you'll notice around the circuit, as you would see at Speedway or something like that, where you see a series of green and red, and there goes the green firing off now, and that'll cycle through to a red, and then red, green, and then nothing. That's all being done via the Woodland Scenics sequencing hub, which again is a dimmer, but allows you to flick the switch and let lights alternate, and you can adjust the timing if you want them to be changing rather quickly, almost like a Christmas tree, or like what I have here, this would probably be set at level 1 out of 10. So in other words, if you were to wind that through to about 10, I think it's about 20 to 30 minutes before each change happens. That's a little bit slow for me. I just wanted to create a little bit of movement there, and that's pretty much where we are. So as always, thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed what we created in this particular corner, and we are now commencing on the other loop, the Faulty Towers loop, as we speak. But we have our golfing tee box set up on this corner. We certainly have the putting coming in from the golf over here. We have our Dad's Army inspired cricket ground. We have Toffee Holt. We come across to the Knoodle Knocker Junction signal box. We have the track work that happens to appear for letting us come down to the fill yard, which we'll come back to in the future. And of course, we do now have the Knoodle Knocker Radio Control Club in place, having a bit of a race day there, or evening, as the case could be. So from me, Joseph of Joseph's Model Railway and Toy Room, live from Knoodle Knocker Junction, I'd like to wish you all the very best. Please do stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one. Toodles.